This is TWiT. We do need regulation of AI. And what he's saying
But
is...
I don't know if we know what to say, what to do, how to do it. I don't think we know enough now.
Well, I mean, we've got some interesting cases. Illinois at the moment has probably the strongest biometric safety laws in the US, which is why Clearview's being sued there at the moment, because they've said, if you're going to use my biometric information, you need to ask me first, which seems kind of logical. Call me a wild, wacky regulator, but if someone's using my personal data, I want to say into whether or not that works or that should be allowed.
I have to say, Bruce Schneier had a really good opinion piece in the New York Times in which he said it's a mistake to focus on face recognition.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that's just the tip of a very big iceberg.
That's right.
He says the issue is we're being tracked in thousands of ways, whether it's the MAC address on our phone, our heartbeat and gait can be measured at hundreds of feet by lasers. We can be identified in so many ways.
That's right. And the future of ID, of AI-based ID, is multiple versions at once. The Pentagon put out a call for contracts, whatever they call it, DARPA, for a system that would track somebody at 500 yards using thermal imaging. And thermal imaging can track somebody in a fog, both Face ID and gait recognition and other things, right? Through a windshield, through their specs are amazing. And of course, anything the Pentagon does, they will have this in the field within a year, and it'll be available at Best Buy within 7 years, right? Because that's how it goes.
The thing is, though, face recognition is being used everywhere now. And more and more. So I think it's not unreasonable to say, all right, just wait a second, what do we do about this? And down the line, maybe it's going to be 5 years from now, there are going to be other ways to track people as well, and maybe we need to address them then. But if you just let facial recognition run rampant for another 5 years as you wait for everything else to be figured out, I don't think I like the picture I'm starting to see there.
Well, I'm not making a case for non-regulation. I'm just saying that basically I'm alerting people, because I wrote a piece about this also behind the paywall at Insider Pro on January 17th. The facial recognition backlash basically has the biggest source of it is the fact that AI recognizes people of different skin colors and races unevenly. So if police are using it, then there's a fear that black people specifically will be more likely to be falsely accused of things, et cetera, et cetera. However, the fact that AI is imperfect is a temporary thing. AI recognition is going to get to be 99.9% accurate at some point.
And one hopes we'll get rid of the biases in here, and it doesn't do as well with women and people of color because it's trained mostly with white men.
Exactly.
But presumably that will get better.
I mean, in this country, NIST has just finished doing a series of studies into the relative efficiency of different AI systems. If you're using an AI built in China, for example, or Japan, it's great at recognizing people from Southeast Asia, but not so great at white and black people. If you do one developed in America, it's great on white people, but not so good on black or Asian. These things are going to work themselves out, and it's going to take some time. But you're right, it's going to become very accurate.
Are you guys subscribing to the school of thought that says any technology that can be used will be used? Like it's just impossible for us to invent this and just not use it.
Actually, I addressed that in my column.
Used.
Actually,
it's being used right now, and it's not perfect. But as it gets better, it would be more used.
The reason AI-based identification of all kinds, including face recognition, is going to take over and become universal is because everybody's going to want it.
But the problem with face recognition is not face recognition. The problem is the authoritarian governments, as in the case of China, that use it. Isn't it? I mean, isn't that what we should be worried about? Is how it's used, not the fact that it exists?
Well, the rub is if you use it, then someone's going to use it in that way, and that's why the concern is there, and that's why it's not only about biases, which of course is a huge issue, and skin color that changes how reliable it is. But it's also about using it at all. I do wonder, though, if we can do anything about it because...
Well, let me tell you how it goes.
It's just a work now.
I'm working on a long form piece on smart streetlights. And this is something affecting cities all around the U.S. and around the world. But basically, here's how it goes. A city goes, oh, we're spending all this money on electricity for these lights. They're incandescent, where they're much more efficient LED bulbs. Let's replace it. And if these light things are internet connected, then we can see which bulbs are out. And since it's internet connected, why don't we put some sensors in there to check smog? And we can put cameras in there to check traffic and foot traffic and parking. And we'll have all these effects. And one thing leads to another. And next thing you know, it's frickin' Orwell.
Yeah.
The city is tracking everybody with face recognition, mapping where everybody goes. The cameras are getting license plates, faces, gate recognition, all this kind of stuff. And just a slippery slope to like, oh, look at that. And then the city gets addicted to the money they made. They put a red light camera on every block. You know what I mean? It's like it's slippery slope. So how do we arrest?
We had the same thing in the UK, because the UK invested very heavily in CCTV systems in the 90s, because we had the IRA threat, and it was sold as the next big thing. And then, before you know it, they're putting they've got cameras on there. They're putting microphones on there.
That's another thing. Well,
the Metro Police in London
just announced they're going to use live facial recognition as a test for 2 hours a day.
And the last time they tried it, they got a 99% failure rate.
I remember that.
It was just was pathetic.
Well, we're getting better. So, first of all, why just a few hours a day? I don't understand.
I think it's a test.
A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down.
Yeah.
So ease into it. It's LFR, live facial recognition technology, and what they're trying to do is stop crime or catch criminals with warrants. What are they trying to do?
Okay,
catch criminals.
I mean it's basically down to we can identify if someone's got an outstanding warrant against them, that sort of thing. But one thing we learned with CCTV cameras is it doesn't stop the crime from happening. It just makes it slightly easier to identify who did it. So
nothing
a
wrong with
CCTV
that.
camera won't stop you being mugged. You can still get mugged and have the living hell beaten out of you, but they might have a slightly better chance of finding out the person who did it.
Well, down the line, when would-be criminals understand that it is more likely they will be caught, and it might reduce crime. But I think that is potentially an interesting approach to this. The arguments for and against are both valid. Saying it helps fight crime. If it's true, then maybe we should have some of that technology put in place. The fact that it reduces freedoms because it reduces privacy is also a valid argument.
But that's a more abstract argument. I mean, I think there's a very concrete argument, which is offered by Assistant Commissioner at the Metropolitan Police, Nick F. Grave. He says, as a modern police force, I believe we have a duty to use new technologies to keep people safe in London. Every day, our police officers are briefed about suspects they should look out for. LFR improves the effectiveness of this tactic. Similarly, if it can help locate missing children or vulnerable adults swiftly and keep them from harm and exploitation, we have a duty to deploy. I think that's concrete. That's not abstract. Compared to the abstract, but our privacy be invaded, I think the concrete benefits kind of outweigh the abstract.
But there's a larger conversation about policing. That policing is the only undemocratic aspect of a municipal government. The public should be telling the police how the public wants to be policed. The way that anybody involved with security or policing approaches the job is like, we're doing safety and security, and therefore we decide how it all goes, and we're going to get our way. As a journalist, my job would be so much easier if there was a law that said when I called Jeff Bezos, he'd better answer the phone, and that would make my job easier.
No, but
except my demands, my professional demands have to be balanced against other demands.
But we give the police that power. I think we have.
I don't think we did give them that power. I think they've taken it.
We said we want to be safe in our homes, and that if this helps us, I think there is clearly a cost, but the cost is minor compared to the benefit.
Well, that's the claim,
but we don't know what the benefit is. And what we need is once those things, because they are happening and they're going to happen at least as tests, and what we need is to know how well they work. Because we keep having those theoretical conversations. It would make people safer. It would invade our privacy. We don't know how safer we are. And I would love, if the London Police Department comes out after 6 months of tests and says, okay, listen, we've managed to arrest 17 more people thanks to this system specifically, and it's audited and it's verified, it's truthful, then that's a specific kind of conversation. If they say we've arrested 2 people and one of them was released because it was wrong, then it's a different kind of conversation.
But so you can't tell that until you do the test. You got to do the test.
Exactly.
But I think it's a good point, Patrick. But my concern is the fact that it's almost inevitable that these things will be perfected, and that's the world I'm concerned. I'm concerned about Minority Report,
let's
where
stipulate
Mr. Anderton
it works
walks down the street.
Let's stipulate it works.
Yeah.
Isn't that a better world? Isn't it true that when you're in a city where you're not safe, that it is a significant burden on your comfort, your stress level, your ability to get things done, and then when you're in a safer city,
do you not watch
people
Sylvester
are happier.
Stallone movies? Didn't you see Demolition Man, where every time he used a cuss word, he had to get the paper?
Well, that's not. Nobody's proposing that.
But this is mission creep. This is where
we do weigh in. We get to choose which laws are enforced.
Look, it's
where the public does weigh in.
Okay, I've just driven up.
I have an easy way to explain.
But we don't get to choose.
Okay.
Well, we're supposed to get to choose. That's called legislative oversight. But
Go ahead.
Right.
But no, I mean, I've just driven up on the freeway, and the police, if we were carrying phones with GPS and which have movement trackers in, about half the people on that freeway would have been getting speeding tickets.
Good. They should be stopped.
Was it Lisa who posted a picture of like this military police vehicle in Petaluma?
Yeah, Petaluma apparently has a tank.
Did you approve that?
What?
You didn't approve that? Yes, they have a tank with it's like this assault vehicle that's like
This is in case the annual cheese and butter contest.
It was just down the
street
from John's house. They were worried because they were arresting some people they knew were armed. It wasn't an active shooter case. There wasn't anything going on. These guys are armed. We're going to arrest them. So bring in the tank. And this is actually, I think this is an interesting argument, the militarization of local police in the United States, because so much of this gear is made for the armed forces, and because budgets allow, a lot of cities, municipalities have basically strategic arms.
And it's surplus, and they get it at a discount.
Yeah.
Unlike the UK, where a guy shows up with a billy club and a funny hat, and that's it.
Okay, just to clarify, no, 5% of the police are armed. But if they are armed, they go through extensive training beforehand. If they kill anyone, then they go through two inquiries. I have a friend who's an armed police officer in the UK, and they actually show US training videos to British bobbies and saying that's not how you do it.
Yeah.
You don't immediately pump everyone in the area full of bullets. You fire very carefully and as little as possible.
To be fair, this is the vehicle. It's not exactly a tank. It's kind of scary.
It's not exactly Andy Griffith.
If I was going to bet that against my garage wall,
let's get
I'd
the
bet
SWAT
with
vehicle, Opie. Let's go down to the fishing hole.
Can I get back to the policing facial recognition thing with CCTVs just for a second, because I think there's a point that needs to be made.
Okay. Somebody stole my Tim Tams. That's the point. And I want face recognition imagery. John, pull it up.
If you have something on your face, I still recognize you.
And Leo, knowing who stole your Tim Tam is important. The benefit, right? That's the benefit.
Right.
The concern that Mike and others are worried about, legitimately so, I would say, is the other effect, which is no privacy. And how do you illustrate no privacy? I think if we ask everyone anywhere, do you behave in your room, in your house, the way you do in the street? Everyone would say no.
You don't have a right to privacy in public, do you?
No, but that's the question. Do you feel like, and that's an answer that could be, interesting to ask. Would you want everywhere to become as public as the most public place, and so you don't have the freedom to act the way you would if you knew you weren't being watched? And that's not about committing crime, just being yourself. And I think that is a concern that is important. When you're in your house, you behave a certain way. If we put a camera in your house, we
put cameras in our own houses.
I don't want people
laptops.
I don't want people urinating in public.
Your house.
I think it's good to have. By the way, apparently we don't have just one tank; we have two.
Two tanks.
Because here's one of the tanks.
Petaluma, it's the rough edge of the ghetto.
This is a town of 55,000 people. Here's one of the tanks. Here's the other one.
Oh, I like that one.
It's kind of cool. I'd be fun to drive that around.
Is
I
that
think
some sort
actually
of
Alex
turret?
Jones was driving that around in Richmond. That was at the Alex Jones.
It just looks like a
InfoWars.
regular American car. I don't think
It's God bless it.
I don't know if I have the flag going in and out so low.
But that does look like they might have a gun turret on the top.
Yeah.
That's a little
It's
concerning.
anti-aircraft because you never know.
Okay, so this we're making fun of this, but this is a perfect example. The Petaluma police would say, well, this protects our officers and helps us do a better job of protecting the citizenry of Petaluma.
But it also escalates the situation.
It also gives them the ability to shoot down low-flying craft.
The whole point of policing when I growing up was that they de-escalated situations. The whole point of stuff over here, and I have to say, the bulk of the police I found over here is they are trying to dominate the situation,
right?
Get
That's
control
poor training.
of it, and
that's
then
poor training.
It's poor policing. Policemen are citizens.
Bad policy, and I think that I do think the equipment, whether it's surveillance equipment or armored vehicles, I think it sort of like it takes us to that next level. Okay, so we're going to use this equipment, and you want to catch more bad guys. You want to be more effective. Everybody wants to be better at their jobs. It's just that for some reason, when it comes to policing, we don't do a good job of balancing the need for them to do their jobs against other concerns. And especially we have to consider this slippery slope problem that we're going to get to the point where all this recognition is perfected. Everybody's going to have it. The bank's going to have it. The store's going to have it. The streetlights are going to have it. The police, and so everywhere you go, you're going to be recognized. And do we want that?
But the thing is, I think a lot of people do want that.
I think so too.
If you got a pair of glasses that you could wear and you would never again meet someone and go, oh, yeah, I know who you are. What's your name? I'm damned if I can remember. You got a little microphone behind your ear that says, this is so-and-so and so-and-so. You worked together 3 years ago. She's currently here. And then that would sell like hotcakes. And it's
What would be wrong with this perfected technology if everybody had access to it? What's the hazard here? I mean, I know the hazard in some senses is an authoritarian government that uses it to put down its people, but that's the hazard, the authoritarian government. That's a real and genuine hazard. But what would be the hazard just of the technology? Why would that be a problem?
Because some of us still believe in freedom and living in a free society.
Why are you not free? Just because I know your face.
You're
looks
not free.
like.
So if I'm it's at 2:00 in the morning.
You're a hippie.
I'm driving home. I'm a hippie, and I'm driving home, and there's like no cars as far as the eye can see.
Yeah.
And there's a red light. I'm just going to go, right? I made that choice that I want to do that. If that results in a ticket. Every single time, 100% of the time.
Because that's an inherently dangerous thing to do.
No, if there's no one
inherently
around.
No, there's a rule that you don't go through red lights, and just because you think there's no one there doesn't mean you're not going to hit something.
We have to balance.
You shouldn't have that
society.
discretion.
We want a lawful society on the one hand, and we want to be free people on the other, and we have to find that balance. Giving 100% of the power over to one side takes away that balance.
So you can run red lights in the middle of the night?
Well, it's
yes, exactly.
It's possible,
and
I
think thousands of other things.
So you're that guy. I was wondering if you were that guy.
I probably
There's an argument to be made for the possibility of transgression. There's an argument to be made for the possibility of transgression to an extent. If you live in a society where no transgression is even possible, I think that is something that is chilling.
Yeah.
And that's where that technology leads potentially.
I just want the possibility of transgression, Leo. That's all I want.
Well, no, I mean, and just so that you can do that, you're arguing to suppress a technology that has some real value.
I'm talking about an intellectual construct about where we're going. So whenever there's new technology, people in government or in policing and so on always say, oh, great. This will give us a huge advantage in this balance of power against the public and all these other needs.
Well, that's the wrong way to think. Right. And I think that should be fought against.
Okay.
Because it isn't a balance of power against the public. They are the public.
But you should be able to surveil them as well.
My classic example of this is if we have Moxie Marlinspike, the creator of Signal, right, came up with a great expression, which was in order for society to advance, you have to have the ability to break the law. Now, the classic example of this is America. If the British had had the kind of capabilities that even the NSA have now, let alone facial recognition, there would be no America. They would have been straight up a rope with a hemp tie.
You're against America, Leo. That's what you're telling me,
well,
right?
I mean, this is it. But I mean, you wouldn't have the civil rights movement. You wouldn't have the gay rights movement. You would have had feminism. You could crack down on all this stuff. And I know there's going to be some people on Twitter who are like, yeah, that'd be great, and say, yeah, well, screw that. Never mind. But
that's a really, so philosophically, that's a very interesting,
you've got to have
and
the
somewhat
ability
profound
to break the
argument,
law.
which is that perfect law enforcement is not a goal to be desired. No. Because transgression is important for creativity, for growth, for innovation.
And we need a balance. Let me tell you a little story. So years and years ago, there were no cameras in police interrogation rooms. There was a room, and the police go in there and they
can do whatever they want.
And then at some point, they invented the video camera and they started installing those. And we've all seen the cop shows. They go and unplug it right before they do the police brutality, and then they plug it back in or whatever. But you have a technology that gives a huge advantage to one side against the other. But a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago or something like that, some kid had a music player that could also record audio, and he went into an interrogation room and he recorded it. And so he had this big interrogation, and then when it went into the court, the police lied about everything that happened. And he's like, oh yeah, listen to this. And then they played what really happened. The police was fired and actually served some time and all that stuff. But that was a case where the argument is not that he should have been allowed to break that law. The argument is that if one side gets surveillance power, okay, great. The other side gets surveillance power too.
Yeah. That's in a way the really good thing about technology is it isn't complicated. It isn't expensive. It can be in everybody's hands. Marlinspike is a perfect example. And so if face recognition is going to happen, let's make it happen to everybody's benefit.
And let's be fully aware of what they're doing. Do you know why Florida Man stories exist? Have you ever heard about this?
Yes.
So Florida Man, my favorite Florida Man story is Florida Man told police that the syringes found in his backside were not his.
No, they're not mine. That's mine, man.
The reason Florida Man stories exist is Florida has a law that says that every single call the police get has to be public. And so journalists just go through the thing and they're like, oh my God, look at this, another naked drunk guy on a tractor.
How'd you find that so fast?
A police dog. And so that's why we need full disclosure about everything the police are doing with surveillance.
Florida Man tells police bag of cocaine found in car must have blown in from the wind.
Oh, yeah.
This is a site devoted to Florida Man. It's floridaman.com.
Oh, good grief. You can even get T-shirts as well. But yes, it's... I agree. This is why body cams have been so important. They've picked up an awful lot of stuff. And it speaks volumes now to juries when those body cams malfunction or happen to be turned off. And then because it used to be, certainly in the UK, if a policeman gave evidence in court, they were believed almost unquestioningly. And now you've got body cams and it's just like... Ooh, maybe they told fibs on that one. You know?
Another Florida Man story, Leo?
I'm sorry. This show will just have to go on without me.
This is why the internet is
FloridaMan.com. Florida Man sprays neighbors with bug spray, hits himself in the head with nunchucks.